So first and foremost, I wanted to say I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I was looking forward to it, but this is what I'm dealing with here. I live up near Woodland Park behind NORAD in Colorado Springs behind Pikes Peak, and we kind of got hit the hardest with almost 3.5 feet of snow. So I wish I could control the weather, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I wish I could be there with you all. Um, so that's first and foremost, but
On Zoom though, because otherwise we'd have to find another replacement speaker.
right. No, I'm happy to be here and talk about. I've been working on this new presentation for a while now, and you guys are going to be the first ones to see it. I'm actually very excited. I kind of get to test it out, so I really welcome feedback with this new presentation. I'll be really giving this to the big audience at Contact in the Desert out in California here at the end of May. So you guys are the first ones to see this new phase 2 of what I'm calling Beyond Rocky Mountain Ranch, UFO sightings or government cover-ups. So I'm excited to share this new information with you because one thing doing the Beyond Skinwalker episode has afforded me is it's opened up a lot new doors and a lot more, I guess you'd call them whistleblowers and people in the town. A lot of these small towns, people are pretty tight-lipped, but now people are starting to open up and talk to me. So it's just kind of blowing my mind. And I've been researching this ranch for over 10 years and I feel like I'm starting at square one almost. So I'm excited to be sharing this with all of you for the first time. So we're just going to jump right into it. Pardon me if I seem to move a little fast. It's a lot of information to take in. Typically, this presentation is 3 hours, so I tried to condense it down to an hour version. So if I'm moving a little fast, I apologize. I hope to be able to take some questions too at the end. So let's just get started here. The first part of my presentation, I'm going to give you kind of just, for those of you who aren't familiar with my story, it kind of gives you a little background on what I experienced as a young girl on this Rocky Mountain Ranch, kind of the history of it. Then we're going to move into all this new stuff. So here we go. All right. Can you guys hear okay? Can I get a thumbs up from somebody? Are you guys hearing the sound?
All right.
Yeah, okay. So Colorado Skinwalker Ranch, as it was previously known, has a multitude of high strange phenomenon. One of the first things reported there were these strange humming sounds, bangs underground, cattle mutilation, circles on the ground, craft orbs, Bigfoot creatures, crypto creatures, paranormal activity, military presence, 2 types of ETs, and on and on. Back in the day, when APRO actually investigated this, it was known as the Clearview Ranch because the townspeople didn't want the true location of this place known for fear of credibility and that people would be coming to this town. So these were some newspaper articles, just a small sample from back in the day in the late 70s. Clearview is close encounter capital of the U.S. Town has unusual amount of UFOs, and on and on. Back in 2013, I actually joined MUFON in 2012, came in right as a field investigator, really to investigate what happened to me when I was young. And when John Schuessler learned of my connection to the ranch, he quickly bestowed upon me the briefing document. And I'm so excited to say that David Marler, as many of you know, now has the original APRO files. And I've been texting him every week trying to, when can I get down there? When can I get down there? Because he has all the unredacted information too. And there's some names in there I can't wait to get my hands on. So I'm just chomping at the bit to get down there. But so the first time I learned that anybody else knew anything about this property was when I bought the book Hunt for the Skinwalker in 2013. And I bought the book at the time. There wasn't Hunt for the Skinwalker. Skinwalker really wasn't as popular as it is now. But I thought, oh, it's about a ranch, about strange things. Maybe it'll have some commonalities to what I experienced in my youth. And sure enough, I opened to page 172, Other Hotspots, and started reading about the Colorado Ranch. Now the names and the town were all redacted out. So I was pretty sure because of the strange dynamic of the family that it was indeed the ranch of my childhood. So Doug Wilson at the time was the state director for Colorado MUFON, got his contact information or for Dr. Sprinkle and wrote him a letter. This is December 9th, 2013. Dr. Leo's letter to me saying, yes, this is the ranch, you know, this is it. And by the next week, I was down in Laramie, Wyoming, and got to meet dear Dr. Leo Sprinkle for the first time. And I spent 3.5 years just going back and forth, talking with Leo. He actually put me under for an hour and a half. That was an interesting experience. We won't get into that in this presentation, but he ended up being a dear, dear friend of mine. And unfortunately, we lost him just a couple years ago. During my research, I, went through over 70 boxes of correspondence that people had written to Dr. Leo Sprinkle. I took pictures of all of these documents and basically compiled them into a book, kind of pulled all the interesting things out. I had books to bring with me there, but unfortunately I'm not there. But you can find that on my website if you're interested in the book. We talk about hypnosis, craft descriptions, ET descriptions, motives. Dr. Leo Sprinkle kept all of his return correspondence, so you can actually see his train of thought through 40 years, talking to Phil Klass and Linda Howe and all these pioneers in the fields. And it was just a fantastic way to spend 3 years, is going through all his work. And I was really happy to finish that before he passed away, and he was very proud of that book as well. So I think the best way to kind of explain to you what happened and how we were threatened and warned not to talk about what was happening out on the ranch is through the words of my older sister. Now, I was 9 to 12 years old during the height of these strange, unusual activities out in Elbert County. My sister is 6 years older, so she was, a junior, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior in high school. She actually went to the prom out there in the small town. So this is my sister, and I'll go ahead and play her words here.
My memories focused around the ranch and the very unusual stuff that was reportedly happening there have been neatly tucked away for years. The adults in the situation made it clear that I was not to talk to anyone about what I saw or what I overheard. Not that I probably would anyway, for fear that my friends would think I was a liar. And as far as I could tell, I, along with all the others in the house, were in constant fear, but kind of trying to just get on with daily life, sort of like pretending, nothing to see here, everything's normal. I honestly felt like we had like this massive, weighty secret thrust upon us that we couldn't tell anybody about. It wasn't until Katie told me that the events at the ranch had shown up in a book, and this just happened a few years ago, that I realized that that weighty secret that I had carried all these years had been revealed to anybody else. Now, to say I was shocked, that's an understatement. A couple of years ago, I attended one of Katie's presentations. It was fascinating to hear about what she had uncovered about the place and that whole area that were so forbidden in our earlier life. And then she played a reenactment of the actual words that were used to threaten us. The words taken directly from the initial report of the incident, which, by the way, I never even knew that it was ever reported to anyone. We never knew that until Katie saw that book, that any reports were filed or anyone else knew anything about what was happening there. Anyway, my reaction to the audio actually shocked me. My reaction was just instant fear, and I started crying as if I had been transported back in time. I still don't know the causes of what I witnessed and what the friends of the family were going through on the ranch. I do know that it impacted me and others in a deep and profound way. Now, to find out so much more about it through researchers like Katie, and to find...
Shoot. Sorry, I was trying to read a message. Okay. Anyway, so we'll just move on.
Out there are other places similar to the ranch around the country and possibly around the world is just really fascinating. And I'm so glad this topic is becoming more widely accepted for research.
Okay, the exciting news about my big sister Chris is she joined me for 2 more episodes for season 2 of Beyond Skinwalker, which should be coming out in maybe another month, is what I hear. So I can't really share with all of you until after the episodes air what we encountered on these 2 episodes, but I can tell you the ranch did not disappoint, and I was both my sister and I were blown away by some of the results of the tests they did out there on Beyond Skinwalker for season 2, some of which were not pleasant. I had some ill effects happen on season 1, which I'll get into here at the end, but also that occurred on season 2 as well. So there is a little bit of health risk that seems to like to latch onto me for some weird reason, battery drains and whatnot. So I was really excited for her to join me on the ranch because she was a little hesitant. She certainly doesn't want these hitchhiker attachments. So I kind of begged her and told her, look, this will give us something to talk about in our old age. Remember the day when we, you know, ... So it was a really cool experience to be back on the ranch with my sister. And here, I'm just going to share this quick little, this comes directly from John Schuessler's briefing document of some of the activities that were experienced there back in the mid to late 70s. So I'm just going to roll this and then we're going to get into the new stuff.
Impact is imminent. Impact is imminent. Impact.
Now, like I said, these were things that were in the original briefing document that were reported by many of the adults on the ranch property. My sister and I, we did not live there full time. My mom was dating the gentleman that owned this property, and they both worked at United Airlines training facility in the Denver Tech Center. So we would commute his 2 youngest sons back and forth to the ranch on the weekends, and we'd maybe spend some weekends there. So I was not there full time, but I would hear from the father, my mom's boyfriend at the time, and the sons what was going on there quite often, and they were kind of told in secrecy. But some of the things my sister and I did experience together was, and this is a clear memory for both of us, flipping the Frisbee on a very kind of like similar today where we have all the snow on the ground, but it's a blue sky and it's pretty warm outside. So we were at the ranch flipping the Frisbee. There was this dry round circle where nothing grew. And when we got these reports and I started doing the research, it was really cool to see it was mentioned. It said we stopped at the area where the UFO had been sighted. It was a large, perfectly round circle with only small patches of snow on it. The snow around the outside of the circle was at least 4 inches deep. There was a drop of blood on the snow just a few inches outside the snowless circle. So that was like, whoa. And then they said they photographed it and measured it. I hope that's also in the original report at Marlar's, but they said it was approximately 75 feet in diameter. And there, in fact, were 2. I recall seeing the one in front of the ranch house at the landing site, but there was one on the back side of the ranch house as well. And of course, my investigative mind, was there a silo there? Was there something else? there was nothing like that ever there. So I don't know what that was. The most terrifying night on the ranch, it was the mother's boy's birthday. The adults were up playing board games for a very long time. And that humming sound started up. And, you know, everybody's on pins and needles when that hum starts up, because usually when the hum would start, other things would happen. All the lights went out in the house. So this is what the sound sounded like to my memory, was about that pitch. And then boom, the lights in the house went out. The brightest light I've ever seen out of the front. And then this weird disembodied voice came out of every orifice of the house. And I know, I mean, my sister and I both have terrifying memories. You heard her talk about it just a minute ago, but in the briefing document, it actually had the actual quote from back in the day, and I was floored. So that's from the briefing document, and here's what it sounded like to my memory.
Attention, we have allowed you to remain. We have interfered with your lives very little. Do not cause us to take action which you will regret. Your friends will be instructed to remain silent concerning us.
My mom took that threat very seriously, and one of the questions I've always had is how much of this is Black access military projects? Was this military? And how much of this was actually unknown paranormal UFO activity? And something that I just researched and uncovered, and it's a possibility that they were experimenting with some of these sound weapons, laser technology, and the like back in the day. Early on, they were experimenting with these things, and this could be a possibility and maybe an answer for this weird electronic sounding voice. So I'm going to share this. Oh, I didn't end that play. Hold on a minute. Okay. Why are you not playing? Here it goes.
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
It's called the laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now, is this something they were playing around with back on the ranch? It's a possibility. Here's another clip.
We saw a host of different devices and concepts today, all involving lethal and non-lethal use of directed energy or lasers. From a heat cannon you can strap to your M4 to take out drones or IEDs, to lasers mounted on big trucks, to ships, to even futuristic plasma that could shoot to a person and kind of talk to it, almost something out of a sci-fi movie. So there's a lot going on in the Department of Defense when it comes to lasers, a lot of interesting things down the pipe, a lot of things out in the field right now. Signing off, this is Todd South from Military Times.
So back in the mid to late 70s, as we know, the Air Force Academy owned a lot of that property across I-25. And in fact, when I pulled out the maps of the area, you know, there was a lot of testing done with the United States Air Force out in that area. So were they messing around with some of these technologies? Now, what's interesting is that particular property sat vacant for over 10 years. And one of the questions I've always had is, if they wanted this land, why did they not purchase it and just do that? So that kind of goes against, you know, those theories, but it is still a theory that they were out there testing this. And I have more kind of clues that kind of lead me down that same path. This is where Linda Moulton Howe got her start out here in Elbert County in the mid-70s. She was an investigative journalist. In fact, she only lived a few miles down the road where my childhood home was. So we were practically neighbors back in the day, which was really cool to find out. But she actually interviewed Bill Wall, the undersheriff, and did her film Straight and Harvest. I'm going to skip this in lieu of time, but there were so many mutilations almost occurring daily of not only cow, but horse, sheep, even dog. People were arming themselves, fearing they would go to people next. So this particular mutilation case was really fascinating. These are actual photographs. The one on the right, sorry for the graphic nature of these, but was a coyote kill where the coyote jumps on and rips at it. The other one is a witness of mine. I went to Wyoming and interviewed her. Her husband was on horseback, came across a dead calf, had an incision a perfect square with 4 cuts. The top of the fur was removed, but the skin was still there. He gets back on his horse, goes and gets my witness. They come back, and that is the result. It was cauterized, organs removed, blood drained, no marks around the animal. And they said they felt watched. It was really eerie. One of the most interesting cases of mutilations that I've ever heard about. Another big phenomenon back in the day were these strange unmarked helicopters. They were reported menacing people, chasing people. It was such a widespread phenomenon. There was actually a really in-depth investigation done on these unmarked helicopters right here, called the Choppers and the Choppers. And they were looking at the distribution of the, you know, how many per month, by days of the week, by location. You could see Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado was hit the hardest, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska. All these places were hit. So what was that about? Like I said, this area there, that where the red star is where the ranch sits. And you can see we have the Air Force Academy, Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD, Fort Carson, Scrivener, Peterson, and there's also Butte, which also houses the military's largest collection of helicopters. So that's kind of interesting. And like I said, back in the day, you know, is it possible they were doing testing around the Black Forest area and the Elbert County area? Absolutely. This is a little note I found in Dr. Leo's archives when I was investigating. Basically, it says, Bill Wall, the undersheriff, wants to talk to someone, has seen ships going in the ground, boxes, mutilations being done. Nobody will talk, don't want investigation or publicity. No stigma, credentials are an important factor. John would go back. Now, John is an important figure in all this, and we'll get to him in a minute. NORAD colonel said bluntly to forget about it and to shut up. And the Air Force head has a directive to handle UFOs and Bigfoot. And it's true to this day. There's still, if you talk to people that go through the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, there's still rumors of these Sasquatch on the forest edge, and to look out for those there. So it's kind of interesting.
And it was in the daytime, and a helicopter, 1 or 2 of them,
This
took
is
off
the
from their back
undersheriff's
field.
son.
And the thing about helicopters, they make a lot of noise and throw up dust. But they took off. But I remember Dad got in touch with NORAD, and I think I rode with him over one time. But
you probably did.
He asked them to make sure to keep you know, the Army or whatever out of the county to do this investigations, because they didn't want anything going on. When people saw this, I mean, you could tell a helicopter from something that does not make noise. And they had Stapleton Airport at the time. You know, they would work with the tracking of the radar. They would send planes up flying around, and Stapleton Airport would tell them, it's like, you got an unidentified flying object directly below you.
With one of the ranchers, most of the ranchers had their own little plane, and they had notified the Air Force Academy out of Colorado Springs. They had notified Stapleton Airport to not have any flyovers at this particular time. And they were up and he was up in this plane. My husband was up in this plane. Right next to him came this, it was white, whatever it was, came up beside them, and they could see a black object sitting in the pilot seat. And they radioed Stapleton to find out who was there, and they said there's nothing on radar, and that thing took off.
I know one of the stories that he told me when they were up there, and it was Stapleton notified him that there was something unidentified flying next to him, and then it just disappeared off the screen, off the radar. It's gone. That's why the Dad talked to the people in NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain, told them to keep the helicopters out of the county at the time. Because, you know, ranchers, they were shooting at them.
So again, one of my theories is, were they out there doing black access projects? I know most of you here are very familiar with the MK Ultra program through the CIA. There's some clues that they might have been messing with this. There's over 160, I hear 65 plus programs out there, and I'm kind of following this lead as we speak right now. Here's something again that was in Dr. Leo Sprinkle's archives. Warren, his last name redacted out. Again, I hope I get that last name. I actually update just 2 days ago. actually found one of the pilots that was ejected in the A7D crash, and I'm hoping with any luck he gets back with me. I would love to interview him. He's 83 years old right now. Anyway, so Warren from Camp Carson visits the ranch. He felt something wrong. Wouldn't go into the woods. Something took over his mind, made him walk towards the woods, would release him, and he would run back, and this did this to him 5 times. My first question is, why is there a soldier there from Camp Carson? That's question number 1. But this taking over his mind thing's really interesting. Again, there's in the reports, there's talks of LSD, researchers, MK Ultra kind of things. Now, a little interesting side note is the main gentleman out there, John Duke. He claimed to be, and I'm still trying to verify all this, part of the Aerospace Defense Command. Okay. And so there's clues in there that he lived in San Francisco in the 60s. And what's really interesting in this, from the briefing document, he says, during the 60s, I took LSD, and then he puts in parentheses, it was legal. And I don't know about you guys, but there is no legal LSD unless you're part of this MK Ultra program. He also talks in the briefing document about bringing vagrants and homeless people onto the ranch. Why would he do that? What were they doing out there with this LSD? And just recently too, I've had another whistleblower, her father passed away and was deep in the CIA, and they're talking about this LSD program, which was a mix of hallucinants called FM, and it's a beeping, F word magic is what FM stands for. So as we speak, I'm getting more and more information about some of these secret programs, and perhaps they were being being messed with out there on this ranch. So something that's really compelling. Now here's something too. November 11th, 1975. This is a very interesting day, and it just keeps getting more and more interesting. So this is the day of the 2 A7D pilots that were scrambled out of Buckley, which is now Space Force, in pursuit, according to Dr. Leo Sprinkle and others, and the sheriff of the county, in pursuit of a UFO, or an unknown object on radar. Now, what's interesting about that, first of all, let me get into this. So this is where it talks about the 2 National Guard interceptors went up in pursuit of a UFO. It was a little unnerving. So this is from the sheriff. He was going to mind his own business. This is the article I found about it. I sent a FOIA request, and got this big, thick packet back. And what's interesting about this, of course, is a lot of it's redacted, but one of the causes was the instructor pilot misidentified the rotating beacon of another aircraft as one of the causes, but they never identified what this other aircraft is. It's a bit suspicious. And then this is interesting. It says, after sunset, Red Eye 32, the instructor, noted that 8 of his cockpit instrument lights were inoperative: the airspeed, the vertical velocity, radar altimeter, the clock, the oil fuel quantity, the fuel flow, and turbine outlet temperatures. So my youngest son right now, he's going through his Spartan aviation, and I asked him what all these particular instruments have in common, and they could be affected by static electricity. I need to verify that with somebody much more intelligent but I think that's kind of an interesting theory to go on. I found an illustration of the panel and kind of marked out the instruments that went out on the instrument panel of the pilot. Also, what I found interesting through my FOIA request is this aircraft had 218 round lives of ammo in the gun systems, and they're flying over civilian homes. And I don't know if that's typical practice or not, but I'm thinking, again, I want to give a shout out to Dave Marlers as they're doing research. There's Tom Whitmore and Dave and I. And while I'm there, I come across this. It was like a 32-page report. I have the whole report here, but it talks about the early morning of November 11th, 1975, out of Falconbridge, Ontario. They're spotting numerous objects on radar that were going from 26,000 feet in altitude to 72,000 feet. They watch this for several hours. There's many ground personnel that are witnessing these craft. There's civilians, police officers. So they decide to scramble 2 F-06 Delta Darts out of Falconbridge or Selfridge, Michigan, right over the Great Lakes. So this happened on November 11, 1975, the exact same day as the 2 interceptors go down in Colorado and Elbert County. Now, what else happened on November 11, 1975? Travis was found. Travis Walton came back on November 11th, 1975, 12:06 a.m. in the a.m. And I know this because here we have, going through the records, this Tuesday, November 11th, 1975, early in the morning. This is the paper from November 12th, Wednesday. It states Walton, his brother, called in right after midnight on Monday. So it was Tuesday morning, right after midnight, November 11th, 1975. So here we have Travis Walton coming back from his adventure and 4 interceptors scrambled across the United States. I find that unbelievable. So that's crazy. So I did a little more digging and I thought, well, I wonder how common aircraft crashes are or incidents over Kiowa, Elbert County. So I did a search from 1969 to 1972 with 0 reports. Then I did a search during the height of this strange Lindenmollnau mutilations. And here we have 4 incidents from 75 to 78. And in comparison, just to see what that looks like from 79 to the present, this is from 1979 to present day. And we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overall incidents. So during the height of that activity, we had a high amount of aircraft incidents over Kiowa. So I find that strange as well. Another crazy thing, south of Rama, right in that area, strange, mysterious metal was found in the area. This is an article about that. And then the craziest thing for me was meeting Sean Bartok, who had a ranch only, well, we didn't know at the time because in the book he says it's in Castle Rock, but in fact, it was only 14 miles away from the ranch of my childhood. And he's doing a presentation for Colorado MUFON, and I'm sitting in the 3rd row, and up comes a drawing. His are on the left. The ones from the ranch from Dr. Sprinkle's archives are on the right. We did not know each other or know anything about each other. But he said these tubes in the neck actually come out like the ones reported on the ranch. These are the drawings, the one with the thing over his chest and the long spindly arms from the ranch. The one on the left with the tubes out is from Sean Bartok, 14 miles away. Are these guys connected to these strange boxes? I don't know. They're so close with the heavy brow and the wrinkles and the tubes that I put them on top of each other, and I made this little video here, but check this out. I mean, just the size of the eyes, the shape of the head, the wrinkles, the brow, the tubes. I'm still just shocked by that whole thing. This is, are they an AI mix? That's kind of a theory I had. Could they be some sort of AI? They were reported to have 2 types of ETs spotted on the property. These tubey guys, I call them, the AIs, and these Nordic types, and they said to be in conflict with one another. I never witnessed either one of these or any craft or downcraft, but the adults in the area did. So what's up with a lot of these locations? Looking at the geological makeup, we all know the Native American history a lot of these spots have. That could play a role, but they're also, all of these locations ping the charts of being highly, highly magnetic. So I just sort of made a little graphic of that so I can show that. That's the ranch in Elbert County. Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog, Bartok's Ranch, Bradshaw, Ohio Pile, Pennsylvania, another high stranges, high creature case. So highly magnetic areas. And then of course, David Pilates talks about the aquifers underground. So kind of looked into aquifers in these locations. And I know for Elbert County, right where the ranch sits, we have 2 of the biggest, the upper and lower Dawson aquifers coming together. They kind of meet there. One has a higher water table than the other. Does this play a role in it, along with the geological makeup of these areas being high crystalline, gold, quartz? We've all kind of heard those theories as well, even like with the paranormal stuff. You go to the Stanley Hotel, you're sitting on limestone, granite, water. Does this play a role in all this activity as well? It's definitely a possibility. So now we're going to get into the Beyond Skinwalker stuff.
I think it's time for us to take our investigation beyond Skinwalker Ranch. It does require an expanded group of professionals.
What is that thing? We're hundreds of miles from Skinwalker Ranch, seeing similar results.
So again, this was just a really cool opportunity for me. I just share a few of the first season 1. That's David Carr, the producer about that. He actually started he worked with Ancient Aliens, but he also created Oak Island, did 3 seasons of that and then backed off from that and started this. This was kind of cool, the Jeep getting all the, going back to the ranch for the first time. And these were the original pictures that the owner of the ranch, who lives there now and has lived there for over 30 years, Greg, shared with me the pictures when he first moved in. And that was really cool for me to see, because this is how I remember it from my childhood. This is what the ranch house looked like. This was the barn and all the different outbuildings on the property. Really creepy and scary. There's the really scary barn I remember from my childhood. Of course, we did the where we had this crystal radio, and I was communicating with something, I don't know what, but the ham radio operator had no response. Other people had no response, and I got on there and the monitors went crazy. So that was a little bit unnerving, and I don't want to give away what happens in season 2, but I can just say, with my sister, it was pretty incredible what happened with her. Again, the rockets, they shut off the rockets. They repeated some of those experiments for season 2 with really interesting results. Can't wait to see how they put that together. This is the cistern area where a lot of the hum sounds, and in fact, they recorded the hum sound out there, which was really interesting. Now, this whole thing here, this was the very first night back, and emotions are high for me, but they wanted me to take them back where I experienced this disappearing box in the daytime. I don't know what's up with these boxes again. Are they military? I don't know. But I was walking them, it's blizzarding, and the film crew was behind me. I'm going over the barbed wire fence, and out in front of me is just this blanket of snow, and out of nowhere come these tracks, and they go for maybe 10 feet, disappear, come up, go, and then disappear. And these were just bipedal. They were not cow. They don't even have cow on the property, or horse. There's no animals out there but their dogs, and it definitely wasn't dog. So I don't know what these tracks were, but it was really interesting to see that. Now, another question I have, and this kind of ties into Mount Wilson and Skinwalker, and also to the Rocky Mountain Ranch, because these are important players. Now, we know Linda Moulton Howe, Dr. Leo Sprinkles in this photograph, and you can see the names down here. We have Stephen Greer, Bruce Maccabee, Bob Bigelow, John Mack. I mean, the Rockefellers, it goes on and on and on. And here we have them, what they had Project Stargate in the 70s and 80s. We had help put off the SRI International to investigate paranormal abilities. We had Uri Geller, Ingo Swann, Pat Price, Monocle, and others, not only at Mount Wilson Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. Leo was out there with them. Linda Howe was out there with them. So we know these guys were very much aware of the Rocky Mountain Ranch at the time. And my big question is why? What were they doing? What did they know? What do they still know? What are they covering up? And we can add Travis Taylor into that equation as well. So really interesting players from the very beginning, from the early 70s, are aware of these locations. Just recently had the opportunity and pleasure to go out to Mount Wilson Ranch and meet Jeff and talk with Carl Crusher to learn, that history, how all these 3, especially Skinwalker, Rocky Mountain, and Mount Wilson, tie together. What do these places have in common? And we went investigating. There's this really cool cave up there at Mount Wilson Ranch. And Jeff talks about there's the corner of the cave, and I'll show a video in a minute. And he said he was standing in that corner, and it felt almost like a maglev train going under him. And if you kick on that cave, it's hollow. It sounds hollow, as if something's going underground. Now, that's always a theory I've had too at the Rocky Mountain Ranch. You're hearing bangs and hums and sounds underground, but nobody could tell where they're coming from. Were they tunneling? Are there tunnels running from NORAD to who knows where to Area 51 and whatnot? Because Mount Wilson is pretty close to Area 51 as well. So here's a little video. So you can hear how that sounds hollow underground. And for Jeff to say he almost feels like a maglev train running underground is pretty interesting. And when we were out there, boom, these. And I'm like, Jeff, do you guys have Sasquatch reports out here? Now, I know these are pretty small for Sasquatch. I was trying to throw quarters to get the size, but they were going down in the snow. So I kind of reached out and put this little thing. So they're not big. Are they baby? They don't have bear out there. These are definitely not dog. They're definitely not cow or elk or I don't know what these are. Jeff doesn't know what they are, but here's a little video showing how they just kind of start out of nowhere, just like at Rocky Mountain Ranch. And Jeff was joking with me. He's like, did you bring that here with you from Rocky Mountain? I don't know what the heck, but
I'm looking to the right to see if anybody had like a fake footprint. It's a weird.
It's like they
we just walked all the way up here. There was not one footprint anywhere.
No, and they just start there.
Right, they just start there.
They just start. They're not coming from there. They're not coming from over here. There's nothing.
And like you said, look at there looks like a toe print backwards.
It is.
That's weird. Those toe prints are coming straight down, kinda.
I mean, they might go off that way, but I don't know where they came from.
This particular one here looks like there's two things. Something that's much larger and something much smaller stepped inside of something that was much larger.
so that was weird. and again, just talking to Bob Solis about activities, he sent me this email kind of confirming that in 1977, in the 70s, they had similar reports out at Malmstrom in Montana. And they were actually giving lie detector tests to some of the military men and women out there. So that's also an interesting piece of the puzzle. And this actually was a drawing on the left that Solis shared with me, and this on the right was the white fuzzies. That's what my mom called them back in the 70s. They were more dark gray haired. I think she was trying to make them less scary, but the white fuzzies that were seen out there. So there is a Sasquatch presence. There are also these cryptids that are seen out there, these large thunderbirds or phoenixes. There's also these weird like platypus animals that me and my kids kind of witnessed kind of scurrying across the road at one point, and it's also written in the report. So that was another experience that we had that was like, holy cow, what is that? So let me one of the most exciting things that was done, and I'm going to share this clip, and not a lot of people have seen it because it did not make the episode, but here we go.
Hi, David. It's nice to meet you in person.
Good to meet you, Katie.
David, thank you so much for coming in. We're really excited for your results. I'm glad you're finally meeting Katie in person. So we are all very excited to see what you've got for us.
Yeah, I'm excited to brief it.
Andy and Paul are at Rocky Mountain Ranch, a place where researcher Katie Paige experienced strange anomalies almost 50 years earlier as a young girl. With additional evidence of high strangeness at the property, including reports of odd humming noises, disembodied voices, and UFOs, the team has brought in David Morehouse, a remote viewing expert, to help them pinpoint areas on the ranch they should target for investigation.
I'm going to talk to you about the team. We assembled 70 remote viewers from 6 different countries that produced over 3,000 data points. And there's never been that many data points that have been pulled together, not even in the CIA, DIA, Directorate of Technology and Science program.
Wait, so am I hearing you? This is essentially the biggest remote viewing project that's ever been done.
Ever.
We're doing it right here.
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Remote viewing is a process where trained individuals at a separate location enter an altered state of consciousness to detect verbal and visual sensory data connected to an unknown target site. In this case, Rocky Mountain Ranch. The remote viewers were given a masked map, keeping the location of the topography hidden. They then sensed anomalous hotspots on the property that occurred over the past 50 years. The results were then collected by Dr. Morehouse and organized as data points on a map of the ranch.
So this is what came out of sensing by the viewers. All of them were on target very well.
All of them?
Wow.
And then we're going to start looking for things called clustering, major clusters, minor clusters that they're putting together.
You're looking over the ranch house right there where the bright light was.
You can see where the barn was. You can see where the cistern is.
All of those areas where I experience things, it's all clustered in those precise areas.
I mean, what we're seeing right here, between your experience and what we've read in the APRO report, we know that these are accurate areas of strangeness in the sky reported here. And to see it clustered like that gives me incredible confidence in the source of the data, which are your trained viewers, right? It's not 70 random scattered points. There are very clear correlations.
Well, the fact that there are clusters at all right? Like you said, if these were just scattered all over the map, you'd say, well, this is such a random distribution that's not meaningful. Yeah. But the fact that there are these clusters at all strongly indicates that there is something that they're all collectively picking up on.
Now that's at 9,000 feet. So I sequence these. So now at 12,000 feet, look at how the clustering changes. Now you can see a corridor beginning to develop.
And this is at 12,000 feet above the ranch.
Above ground level.
I mean, all of a sudden I start thinking about the UFO sightings that Greg has reported, seeing in the distance at altitude.
It was a whole string of lights. There was 27
like
of them.
Starlink
They came
to
from
me.
south to north.
But apparently
and then
you
he
said
made
this
it the
was
curve,
before
and then
Starlink
they
was launched.
straightened back out, and then they just went out of sight.
That's what I start thinking of when I see this. And
I mean,
look at
there's a
that
band
intense,
right over the ranch.
That intense correlation.
There are also a great deal of verbal sensory data captured by the viewers that talked about infrasound, ELF infrasound hums, noises, sounds, ranging from high pitch to varying frequencies.
Hum noises.
Yeah,
High pitch.
Difficult to sketch hum noises.
Hum noises, that's what
that happened the other morning too. When we were out here taking readings, we heard exactly that at the cistern. That high-pitched hum. Did you hear a noise?
Yeah, that's that like humming noise.
Oh, that is a humming noise. I hear that too. That is exactly how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
I mean, what's striking to me is in all of this huge data set, we got confirmation of what you've experienced, 50 years ago, and confirmation of what we're seeing even now. I mean, this is an ongoing, active phenomenon.
One of the things that's so striking about our remote viewing results is how strongly they correlate with the anecdotal stories and the witness accounts of what's happened out here. It'd be one thing if those remote viewing hits were sort of all over the place and didn't make sense given what we already know, but they lined up so precisely.
But I'm even more excited about the fact that they have now steered us in a direction that helps inform our next round of experimentation.
Absolutely. David, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Really
Absolutely
impressive.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was so validating for me.
Great work, man.
All right, how are we doing on time?
You got plenty of time.
Because I'm going to go through, are you guys interested in seeing more of the results from the remote view? So there's about 6 hours of information from Morehouse. I cut it down to about 7 minutes of little clips. I'm going to share these clips with you guys. This is kind of behind the scenes with David Morehouse. He actually spent, I think he annoyed the folks. He had a 4-hour presentation on just what remote viewing is. If you guys are interested in seeing all 6 hours of this information, you can go to A Glass Darkly. And the information's on there. You can just search it on YouTube and see all of these episodes, but I kind of wanted to clip the highlights to share with you guys. So again, 70 remote viewers from 7 different countries with over 3,000 data points. So here we go. I'll just share these with you guys.
So with that, if you can just give us a brief overview of the assignment, kind of what happened, and then we'll dive into the data.
So this was episode 3 of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. And I knew going into it that it was not going to be an episode about remote viewing. It was an episode about the ranch that we were supposed to be looking at. The beauty of it is that we were, for the first time ever, employing remote viewing, as kind of an enigma penetrator to look at what was going on in the ranch. I think everybody at History Channel, from executives to the production company, they didn't really know what remote viewing was going to be like or how it was going to apply here. Mm-hmm. They just knew that they wanted to do it. And one of their producers that came to me and found me, we worked and talked about this for almost a year, really, just almost a year, talking about doing this and how we were going to do it. If people have not done remote viewing and don't know anything about it, maybe haven't read my book or somebody else's book on it, won't have a good feel for it. And the producers, the directors within the production company, they struggled with, what's this going to be? And then, in meeting Travis and Eric, along with the 2 show hosts, I know Travis got really excited about it, as did Eric. The other two guys, it wasn't really up their alley, you know, to be thinking about it. It wasn't that they weren't fascinated by it. It's just they were worried about what they were going to have to do in presenting on the show. And of course, Travis and Eric are old hands at that. And what Travis, I think, was most taken aback by was simply the fact of the volume of data that was produced. Again, we're not presenting it as a, you know, as an end all or as an absolute. We always talk about it in terms of, you know, it being not 100% accurate and all of the rules that apply to the use of it. Mm-hmm. But it does piece some things together and give the people that are watching History Channel Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, it gives them something where things get pieced together. And even with people looking at that and going, okay, well, we understand it's not 100% accurate, but if 70 people are describing the same thing from 6 different countries, there's something credible there, right?
Yeah, and you can look at statistically significant samples because you have well over 30 data points for each item that you look at.
Okay, so we're going to go over some of what came back that blew my mind. Hold on a minute. I think I went too far. Boom.
So they sense those things, and here's how the feedback came out of it. So the combined data from the 70 viewers for Target 1A at 900 above ground level, AGL, looks like this. This was the clustering. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean anything until you do this. Now there's a reveal. Wow. And when there's a reveal, now you start to see where the hotspots were sensed by viewers around the ranch itself. Which
it's like in the wood line, it's in the woods and along the roads.
Cluster right there in the middle of the yellow and red. That's right where the circle was. That cluster
and
then on the ranch,
places around the ranch,
and the cistern and the box.
Then the next one, this one is the clustering for 1B, which is 12,000 AGL. And then on the reveal, look how the clustering is reshaped now, because the viewers are up higher, so they're seeing a bigger piece of the terrain. And when you do the reveal, it's completely different clustering, right? But very similar clustering. Now you start to see that most of the clusters, other than those that are way up there to the northeast in the right-hand corner of the slide, the others are along the ranch road and cross the ranch and deep into the trees. Now, as it turns out, most of the activity, this I find out as I'm briefing it, most of what took place at this ranch took place out in those trees. This had an event arc of time that I showed you. This goes from
event
2100 on the
voice.
3rd of April, 1976, all the way to 03 on the 4th of April, 1976. Okay. So I broke this up into several different areas, categories of data. This was boxes underground, metal boxes, transparent boxes, glass boxes, because that seemed to be part of the high strangeness of this place. There were boxes that were emitting high energies with life forms in them. And as the story went, after we got the feedback from Katie and the crew about what the viewers were perceiving here, is this was something that actually was part of the encounter of this place, when that these boxes often stopped people right in their tracks and they couldn't move forward or backward, and they couldn't think and they couldn't communicate. But you'll see some examples of that here. So first categories of data are just showing these from different viewers. Now, again, different viewers sketch in different ways. So
all right, and then we go into the craft.
Just the variety of things that are seen and experienced here in this particular target area, in that whole area in general, because of the variety and complexity and differences in so many of the things that are perceived here, I think it's really a convergent point. I think it's a place where maybe many of these sky trails come together, which would follow along with much of the indigenous people's lore of this particular area.
that there were portals, and there were portals that opened and crossed, openings to other dimensions where, craft come in, craft go out, some maybe one way, some not one way, but different. If this is like a Grand Central Station, right? If that's what it is, which I suspect that it is, you're going to see big varieties of life forms and vehicles, and different times when it's open, and different times when it's active, and different times when it's not, both daytime and nighttime. It could be underground, part of it. It could be above ground. It could be separating above and below ground, and then opens and combines the two. I mean, there are so many different possibilities, but this starts to explain why you get so much of this anomalous activity out there. And the
I think there's one more here.
variety of life forms that were perceived here. And I'm not talking possum and prairie dogs. These were humanoid life forms, but it was interesting just to see them and see each of the viewers work hard to try to figure out what the heck they were looking at, because they didn't know what they were looking at. And again, the detect, decode, and the objectify process causes them to go through that conscious decoding where the brain pulls up things that, if it has an association to something, it can quickly grab that. If it doesn't have any association and it's struggling to package it as a decoded four-dimensional lexicon, or imagery for you, it takes longer, and there are struggles. But in this, I pulled out, just for us to see, the stuff that the viewers pulled out. Now, again, there were hundreds of images that were actually pulled out that all correlated and worked for this, but I can't take one alien life form and put 70 different variations of that on a slide to look at, because remember, we were trying to prepare this for hoping we could shoehorn this into Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, but this is where one of the reasons why it just became so overwhelming to them that they just did a small segment, left it out there just talking about the vertical sensing. And that's okay. This place, we've been describing it as, and the viewers were describing it as, like this crossroads, this convergence points of invisible sky trails, or, ley lines, or power points, or portals and vortices and things that are opening and closing. And so it's such a high busy area that in my analysis, it makes sense that there's such a spectrum of life forms that are being described here. And in talking to Katie, who's been out there, it is that kind of a place. The numbers of different kinds of life forms that were present over the time we were there were huge. And from the ones that they called like white fuzzies, to others that you might call a Bigfoot, to others that were greenish skin that sparkled, to others that had little small impish dark critter looking things, to grays, to you name it, right? They're out there.
Oh, I lied. One more.
An interesting discussion about what this was, and it's an interesting piece of artwork on it, but it was just a sense of something really kind of foreboding, something dark and shadowed and hidden and maybe sinister kind of a sense. And clearly that depiction is there when you're looking at this. And that would make sense. It's not all emissaries, and it's not all little friendly, dark life forms that are friends of grandma's. And we can't fool ourselves and think that it is, quite obviously, right? So yeah, I wanted to pull this in. There were a lot of sketches of things like grays, and there were a lot of sketches of the little dark creatures. There were variations of the sketches on the antelope people, on the antelope guy, and there were several cone capped wearing things, and lots of, as I said earlier, helmeted pilots, but clearly alien pilots.
Very interesting. I was blown away by that whole project, the remote viewing project. And thankfully, they brought him back, and they're going to revisit that for season 2, which I am really, really happy about, because I think that's such an important part and a piece of the puzzle. Now, going back to the beginning of this, how much of this is government black access projects, MK Ultra kind of stuff, military out there doing goodness knows what, and how much of this is actual strange phenomenon? Now, this book here, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, really goes into this new kind of hitchhiker theory. And it's interesting just for me as a person who experienced this back in my sister and the family and others, I always kind of compartmentalize these different, you know, Bigfoots over here, UFOs are over here, paranormals over here, whatever that blue orb thing was is over here. And all of the like, I never connected it all. I do now. Only because there's so many other people that experience very similar things, including Jeff McBurney and others on these high strangeness locations. Some of the physical symptoms back in the day, this was me right in the middle of it. That's a picture of me. I think I was around 11 years old right there. Went that night with the bright light and the disembodied voice and all that. When I got home, our house was about 45 minutes away from the ranch. I was paralyzed and canatotic, couldn't even talk. That's when I started my debilitating migraine headaches with vomiting, all that, many different medications till I went through biofeedback training and got a handle on that, the ringing in the ears, the reoccurring nightmares. Shadow figures in my room started around that time. Never slept alone after that, always slept with big sister. The lucid vivid dreamings, the extra sensory abilities, which I like to shut down. But the most overwhelming thing that I had until I was probably in my early 40s was that sense of being watched. It was intense, intense, intense. So much so I pretended like I lived at whatever house I walked back and forth to my elementary school and to the bus station in middle school. And if a car was coming, and motorcycles really freaked me out because they could go up on the grass, I would run to the front door of the nearest house because I was terrified all the time. So, and then the blue orbs. I encountered the blue orb in the bedroom with the Lego bucket falling over and the auto light going on and off. That was right when I opened this Pandora's box back in 2013. I experienced that one time. Discoveries are still being made out there. Like I said, this has kind of opened the door for me to interview more people. This, I hope he'll make an appearance or at least do an extra bonus shot for season 2, but he is a firefighter that's lived out there for years, a very credible witness. He's an elk hunter. There's actually places out in Elbert County to this day in the daytime when he's out elk hunting that he will not go into. Parts of the Ponderosa Pines, he will just not go there. One day he was, oh, can you not see it? He was there in the daytime and he witnessed this very metallic, shiny object with a red glow. He said it was 4 to 5 feet in diameter, 6 to 8 feet off the ground. He said the top of it, he said it was like 2 bunk cake pans. The top of it spun counterclockwise, the bottom spun clockwise. And he looked away for a second, looked back, and it was gone. Said it didn't make any noise. That glow was there just a few seconds after it disappeared. And this was November 2021, I believe. Here's August, here's the 11th again. This is an old-time rancher that experienced many mutilations, still does to this day. This one just occurred August 11th, 2023.
Click on the screen. Click on the screen. There you go. There you go.
Owner said it almost looks burnt by the face.
Why you know about story? So not hearing anything, turn up volume.
Oh.
Volume's all the way up.
The cow was alive in the morning and they found it before sunset on that same day. So this was a recent mutilation. Carl here said he actually owns property up here in Woodland Park. He has cattle up here. And for the last 3 years in a row, on the 4th of July, he's had a mutilated cattle. So guess what I'm doing this 4th of July? I'm scouting out over his ranch. See, because we have a track record of 3 in a row now. So that's upcoming. Carl, sweet old guy, he's in his 90s. He pulled out a big file full of all the articles from back in the day. So I'm pulling more names, more information out of these articles. This was another interview I did actually with Sean's mother, who had lived out there for decades and decades and decades. And she was telling me about petroglyphs and this cave out there in between Sean Bartok's property, which is in Franktown, and Kiowa. There's this cave. And look at this strange, they give offerings in this little bowl, but there's this strange gargoyle type of face carved into the rock face. So when the snow melts this spring and summer, that's going to be another adventure we go on to really investigate this cave and the folklore behind that. Now, I can say that I believe that most of this is government, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so quick to come to that conclusion because I have up here where I live now, paranormal things happening quite often. Pictures flying off the wall. We had 3 of those magnetic pictures there actually come off the wall at the same time. Then they just will turn and they're like magnetic. They have this one turns. I had a Keurig that has no timer on it, kept coming off, coming on in the middle of the night. So I got rid of that. My big screen TV turns on and off. Actually, just today in working, finishing up this presentation, my TV just boom off, boom off, boom off. So this kind of stuff happens all the time. I don't know what that is, why that's happening. Also, that first night back on the ranch during the blizzard, they actually filmed this. It did not make the episode. But the next day we had a day off of filming and my daughter came with me and we went shopping to the Castle Rock outlet stores because I wanted to go to the Columbia store to get, long johns and gloves and be better prepared for the weather. And my back started hurting me and I was wearing several layers of clothing that night. I was freezing cold and it was hot to the touch. It burned, it blistered. It almost looks like a handprint, but Travis Taylor experienced something very similar at Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if that was a radiation burn or what that was, or if something grabbed my back through my clothes, but that was through many layers of clothing. So that was quite frightening. And then for me, this last time filming, I also had to have med drive me back to the hotel room because I had a battery drained from 100% to 50 to nothing within a few minutes with heart rate went way up, shaking. It was really bad. I was the only one to experience that in the whole team. Hillary had just put new batteries in everybody's mics, and that was pretty terrifying. So again, I don't know what or who I'm dealing with, or we're dealing with, or the ranch is dealing with. It's not always a good feeling. The shadow figures certainly weren't a happy feeling. I was always really afraid of them. I have talked with John and Stan, the Navajo Rangers, and they've walked me through how to do some protection and all that. So really, I've implemented those practices before I go on and off this property. But apparently, it likes to just kind of go wherever I am, and that seems to be the case for so many of these folks that visit these high strangeness locations. So that's a little unnerving. So I'm kind of left with, I think my conclusion anyway is I think both things are going on. We're dealing with some unknowns and we're also dealing with military. Maybe they're just trying to figure it out like the rest of us, and perhaps, trying to harness some of these technologies. But anyway, so that is it. Hopefully I stayed within a reasonable time frame. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Again, you can find more information, or I really welcome questions and comments. You can reach me at katiepaige.net. You can contact me through there if you have any suggestions or questions, or you want me to share the choppers and the choppers. It's a PDF file. I'm open to sharing anything with all of you. Just give me a shout out via the webpage there, katiepaige.net. And I want to thank you guys for your time.
Well, thank you.
I hope I didn't go too fast. There was a lot to get in there. Is there any questions? I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
I feel we're gonna have a lot of questions. I just have to get the system to work. If you want to
How
come
did
up,
I do on time? What was the time there?
oh, you're fine. I don't know. Let's see. We started about 6:30, right? Here, you can come up here. I gotta try to get this to work.
So we're about a little over an hour. Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me, Katie?
I sure can.
Questions? Anybody? Questions?
Come on, I love questions. Questions.
Thank you. I just had a quick question regarding the boxes and just a little bit further clarification. I've heard a little bit about the phenomena, but not enough to kind of get a conclusion. So if you just elaborate a little bit more on those boxes and what your theories pertaining to those would be, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. The boxes were something I never talked about for a long time because it just seems so like crazy to me. But when I saw that the Undersheriff Bill Wall encountered these strange boxes, and then I saw Skinwalker Ranch encounter these strange boxes, my good friend Trey Hudson at the South Skinwalker has a different but similar box. And then, of course, we have the Carl Higdon case out of Rawlins, Wyoming, and Medicine Bow. I was just recently out there. And he too experienced these boxes with marks in the ground, by the way. In Dr. Leo Sprinkle's files, there are the original pictures of the Carl Higdon case with the negatives, and that was so cool to have in my hands. But to see the marks of this box on the ground. So not the only person to experience these strange boxes. Now, my memory of the box that I saw in the daytime, I remembered it being larger than a shoebox. It was off the ground. It made this strange, like if you've ever stood under like power lines, like a sound of electricity, and then it would change tones, so it had these weird tones to it. Looked away, they're like, get in the truck, get in the truck, get in the back of the truck, look back, that box was gone. Now in the briefing document, it describes it as being 3 feet long and 18 inches wide. I remembered it smaller than that in my mind, but who knows. It was witnessed by several of the adults back in the day. So again, are those connected to Tubi Guy? Are they connected to some military Black Access project, laser equipment, this plasma ball sound technology? Or is it something unknown? I don't know, but I was really relieved to hear that other people have experienced it as well, because for me, I was just like, I don't know what that is. But that's all I really know about these strange boxes. I know Trey is looking into doing more investigations and hopefully trying to collect more data. Oh, and interestingly enough, Paul Sinclair out in the UK also has these encounters with these boxes. So this is another country that has experienced these disembodied voices in these boxes as well. So I think that's important information to collaborate out of the United States and what is like a bird refuge out there. So I'm not sure what they are, who they belong to, or what their purpose is. I actually had a lady up in Laughlin come up to me and said, you know, one of the things that a lot of these ranchers talk about are the behavior of these cattle before and right after these mutilations. And they said it's really strange that in the pastures where the mutilations are being done, these cattle are like huddled together and kind of calm. In adjoining pastures, they're all freaked out and like braying and crazy. And I'm wondering, you know, are these boxes, are they like kind of, are they causing them to be calm? Are they emitting a frequency of some sort? Are they something to do with paralysis? Are they a communication device? I have no idea, but that's what I know about the boxes, and it's a great question.
All right, do we have more questions? And one announcement before, I'm gonna be passing around some papers that are just for adding emails for updates, is what it says. So if you want to be added to our email list for our meetings or events coming up, just write your email on here, and I'll be passing 3 papers around, and there'll be one in the hallway. So
I was going to mention too, Katie, UFO highway at there was the box on the UFO highway out at Area 51. So and also Dr. Leo Sprinkle, he was a professor at the University of Wyoming, and he would hold ET support groups every year back in the days. And that's a little bit of insight with Dr. Leo Sprinkle. So he would gather all these people from all around the United States. They would go up to University of Wyoming there, I think it's Cheyenne, and then they would have groups and talk about their experiences. So he was very much into the abductions. And like Katie said, he had all these hypnosis sessions, which Katie was one of the people that were being induced. So Dr. Leo Sprinkle did a great job in offering our support for those back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So, and even, I think even our friend John Foster may have got with Dr. Leo Sprinkle back, and he came to Omaha and would talk with us as well. Any other questions?
And Leo Sprinkle, he's out of Laramie. There's also, he would do retreats and stuff at outside of Laramie at a location called the McGuire Ranch. So I've been really doing a deep dive into that location as well. Very similar, again, to some of these high strangest locations.
Hi, Katie.
Hi there.
or your sister abducted, and what do you wear for protection?
Good question. I don't remember ever being abducted, nor does my sister. However, some weird things, Dr. Sprinkle put me under for an hour and a half. One interesting thing, just from a psychological standpoint on that topic, since I was threatened and warned by my mom's boyfriend, and other adults back in the day not to talk about what was happening out there, the first like 15-20 minutes of my regression with Dr. Sprinkle was me standing up and like finding my voice to the adults. And I thought that was interesting. Like I couldn't speak even through hypnosis until I found my voice and my courage. So I thought that was interesting. My voice kind of changed to a little girl's voice, and I wasn't scared, and it was kind of creepy. I have weird dreams. And actually that's a chapter in my book, like, is this a memory or a dream? I don't have any conscious memory of being on a craft or taken or anything like that. They all kind of come in dream states. So I don't know. But as far as just the thing on my shoulder and what happened for season 2, that's what I worry about. Now, I don't know if these are some sort of frequency weapons or sound or laser, or I would hate to think that somebody is doing something nefarious to me that's like human. So, like I said, the ex-Navajo Rangers, John and Stan, kind of walked me through some protection rituals, and I do that. As far as what I wear, I mean, I think with the thing on my shoulder, I was wearing several layers of clothing. So apparently, unless I'm wearing some sort of tinfoil suit, maybe, I don't think it's going to protect me very much. But certainly surrounding yourself with positive thoughts, positive energy, and having just, that, I actually, it kind of surprised the producers of the show, because I think they wanted me to have a different reaction than I had being out on the ranch that first time. I think they wanted me to be really afraid and cry and all this stuff. But for me, I got into this like fighting mode where I was just like, all right, I'm grown now, come at me. You're not going to mess with me anymore. So that kind of even surprised me a little bit. And that's part of that protection as well. Like I'm not a little girl anymore, and I'm going to stand up to whatever this is. And I have Dr. Sprinkle on the other side helping me out. So that's always a bonus.
Hey, Katie, how's it going? I was just wondering, do you have anything on Operation High Jump 1947?
Well, no, that's paperclip. High jump, give me a little briefing what high jump is.
Operation High Jump, Admiral Byrd had encounters with UFOs in the Arctic, Nazi technology, all that.
Right. I mean, I know a little bit about that and what is suspected to be out there in Antarctica. I don't know if that has any connection to what's going on with these locations, but who knows? I mean, we were, after World War II, fruit fighters, and, this is the dawn of all these, the Battle of LA and 42, all that stuff. So we were in an arms race, right? So maybe that ties into some of this, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I haven't really connected that to any of these ranches, but anything's possible.
Question.
Hi, I got a question. So when you touched on earlier about the producers seemed like they wanted you to like cry.
Yeah.
And when I show these clips to my like family, they're not like really into it like I am. They
Right.
kind of roll their eyes and they do the music and the camera shaking and all that and the dramatic zoom in and stuff. Do you think it would be less detrimental if they just did it more like a newscast without the music, without the dramatic zoom and all that?
It's interesting for me. For a 44-minute episode, you're out there for several days, cameras rolling nonstop. So they take hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, and you don't know how anything's going to be edited or cut down. I mean, I don't even know for season 2. We did 2 more episodes. And this is a very personal journey for me. And I have to tell you, I mean, with all the things, first of all, my first fear being, I haven't been back there since the late 70s, since I was a little girl. I'm like, is stuff still going on there? What if we go there and nothing happens? Like, oh my God. But then to go there and have all this stuff happen, when I was, driving back to the hotel and stuff, I'm thinking, would they fake this? Would they make this up? Would they? And I'll tell you what, if I ever find out they do anything like that, I would be so lividly pissed off, because it's affecting me psychologically, very personally. And I just can't imagine they would do anything like that. So I understand, you know, what your family's saying, like it is very dramatized and oh my God, but it is at the end of the day, entertainment. People have to be, you know, intrigued in what they're watching and they have to kind of frame it as a mystery. And I get all that. That's why certain things are in and certain things are left out. Like the burn on my shoulder for me was very dramatic, but didn't even make the episode. The remote view didn't even make the episode. I was shocked that didn't even make the episode. So I never know how it's going to be edited either, but I'm just thankful they're doing it and that there is a show out there that's looking at other locations than just the Skinwalker Ranch. Because I'm kicking and screaming going, wait, this was way before that. And, you know, this is kind of where it started in a sense. And so I'm happy they're looking at these other high stranges locations and bringing in people. Like I know this year they're going to have Christopher O'Brien on board and Stan Gordon and some of these pioneers that really truly have done decades worth of work on these locations. And I'm so glad that they're finally kind of trying to correlate these places. So, I mean, I'll put up with the music and the drama because it's opening these doors for more research and more people to do this. So for me, I'm grateful for that. Just that alone, it's all worth it.
Hey, Katie, my name's Josh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hi, Josh.
Hey, I got something to share. It's kind of personal, but so I'm a 7-year Air Force veteran, and my last duty station, I was in Incirlik Air Base, Turkey.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, of course. And then so I heard you mention, I was listening to you mention about I forget the guy's name, but there was somebody you mentioned, I think, that had reported some like almost like mind control or like mind manipulation.
Right. Warren with the last name redacted out. Yeah.
Oh, that was Warren. Okay. Yeah, I had something similar happen to me when I was over there. This was right at the start of COVID, so about 2020. I was just walking out at night in the darkness on base. I went down a dark road and I kind of looked up in the sky. I just felt like there was something in the sky. I felt like a presence, and I looked up into the sky and there was like this bright light that was kind of like moving like in circular kind of motion.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt kind of almost like entranced.
Right.
And like almost like it was like kind of almost like telepathically telling me to follow it. And so and I'm a guy that hates snakes and spiders and like tall grass and stuff, but
Right.
all of a sudden all those fears just vanished, and I just walked through this tall field with no fear whatsoever of encountering any animals or snakes or anything. And normally this is something I would not do, but I did this with no trepidation whatsoever. And it's a very long story, so I'll kind of get to the short of it. But yeah, it's not really a question, but it's more of something I kind of like to kind of cross-reference with you with this guy that had this mind control kind of thing. But I had just to finish up, I ended up running into this chaplain on base, and he seemed to know all about this stuff. Like he was like, yeah, that technology exists, and kind of almost was like affirming everything I was saying. And this is coming from an Air Force chaplain, and I don't know this guy, you know. And then there was some other stuff that happened. It's kind of a longer story, but it's a very long story. But oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just was going to share something. Hold on.
Oh,
All right, go ahead. I wanted to confirm something with you. Finish.
and I guess I would ask, have you ever had any sort of feelings where you felt some sort of like mind control over you, or something like kind of telepathically guiding you, telling you to do something or go to a place?
That's a whole other presentation right there.
I bet.
Yeah, just, I mean, coincidences or synchronicities beyond what is mind-blowing kind of thing. Sometimes just feeling like Katie shuts down and something else is coming through, like to a weird degree. It's kind of scary, but you mentioned a chaplain coming forward. This was a witness, and he wrote several pages of his own. He is an Air Force veteran, and he goes into very long depth about the program he was involved in. Other people are coming forward as well. So, I mean, what to me, when we hear the Navy coming forward, the Air Force is being quiet. Some of these secrets, some of these programs that they did in the 50s, the 60s, into the 70s are so horrendous. I mean, there's even books written, we're talking Charles Manson, murders, people dying, innocent people affected, their own soldiers being manipulated and tested without their knowledge. The liability issues here alone, if this all ever came out to the public, there'd be a lot of very, very, very angry people and a lot of maybe lawsuits, I don't know. But I think that's a big part of the cover up. Then again, it doesn't negate all of it. I'm left with both things occurring. Like it's just that big question mark. But yeah, you know, that's the one positive thing that's come out of some of this History Channel and Gaia and this other exposure is it gives people a voice to finally speak up about these things. And I really appreciate you sharing that with all of us, because I think it's really important that people know what's happening.
Does anybody live at the ranch right now is the question.
Yes, yes, they do. They've lived there for over 30 years. Out here, I mean, this is very sad and it's concerning, but in episode 1, you'll see the wife, they interview her. She talks about the little shadow creature. She passed away just 2 months after they filmed that. Greg is just there on his own now. But you know, we were worried if he was going to be open after just losing his wife in doing a season 2. And thankfully he was open to doing it and still is. And the activities picked up since we've been back, which is also kind of interesting. Again, I think that kind of, to me, it seems like if you go into a dark, deep cave and if you turn on the flashlight, you're going to be focused on it. And I think he's more just in tune to what's happening there and he's noticing it more. But yes, they've lived there for a long time. And getting to meet Nicole, the daughter who was born and raised there, her and I just bonded instantly because she's had the shadow figures in her room, you know, the sense of being watched, all these commonalities, the orb she had an experience with too. So we just connected immediately because we have that shared experiences. So she doesn't live there anymore. She actually lives up here in Woodland Park near me, but she is on the episodes and we're able to share these. So that's been pretty cool. But yeah, there's somebody that lives there. It is gated, but you know.
All right. Do we have any more? You have a question over there? Okay, I'll pass it to you. In the meantime, I got one other question. And to put you on the spot, we have the UNO Native Studies Director in the room, so he's going to be judging you.
Uh-oh.
Question is, what are the Navajo protection techniques that you're using, and how helpful are they?
Well, so I was actually at the in Phoenix at the Arizona MUFON boot camp with Stacy Wright and the gang, and they were there and we're there and so they did the bitter on my tongue and he had the shell and I can't even remember what ones he used. It's not lavender. I have it downstairs. I took pictures of everything and you know he's doing the smudging. Oh, that's what they do, the smudging and the ceremony and all that. And right after he did that, I'm walking in the parking lot after we ate lunch and I literally, it felt like something pulled me back from my shoulders, just like this unseen force went whoo. So that was a little freaky. Mostly what I do now, because I don't take all that stuff and the bitter made me feel a little weird. But I just really will ground myself at the feet and I'll put this white light around me. So it's more of a kind of like a mental exercise I do with myself with like positive thoughts, positive energy. I certainly would never go out there at night, especially not by myself. Matter of fact, that first episode and I was soaking wet. I didn't have any snow pants or anything. So I tripped over the barbed wire and fell into the snow. So my jeans were soaking wet. And you could see in the episode, like Andy and Paul's beard was all frozen. And these guys, they take out, they go, here, sit in the warm truck. And I'm sitting in the warm truck. It's facing the wood line. And they take off. I was sitting in that truck for like 15 minutes. And I'm seeing this red light in the wood line. And I'm like, where did everybody go? Is this a joke? They just left me there. But that's what I did then is I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe they just left me in this truck by myself. Is this a test? But I was just like white light, white light, white light, that kind of thing. That's what I do. But yeah.
That was amazing. Okay. So them leaving you there in the truck makes
I was mad.
well, I know that on Skinwalker they would do repetitive things to see if they could almost tempt a response, right, from the
Right.
ranch. And so my question is, with you guys, was there any attempt to communicate using manipulatives or songs? Like they had the Brother Bears come out and sing up in the canyon, or using the missiles. I know that you showed that briefly, but like, were you getting
Right.
responses and that communication?
Right. Well, the missiles was really interesting because the first smaller ones they did back behind the ranch house in the tree line, kind of where I saw that box, and they were just sort of like poking the hornet's nest, like trying to get some attention, right? But the big rocket where they had the equipment and stuff, what was weird about, well, first of all, the small ones just went like miles off, like I don't know, it was just bizarre, and I maybe shouldn't say this, but the second time around the drone and the data, the GPS data was not showing the location where we were, but actually the missile silos in Malmstrom in Montana. So that's a little, maybe shouldn't have given that away, but it was very strange. But that first season, the big rocket went up and it kind of did this thing, like it hit something and just fell. And where it landed was right where that circle was that me and my sister experienced, and where I also on season 2 had the physical and battery drain. So something weird is going on in that location. But as far as like, not once did they ever say, hey, Katie, do it this way or say it this way? Not one single time. So that's a really cool thing. And we did do that experiment with the crystal radio in the old part of the house. So what's really interesting, when I first get there, the house looks different, but I knew it was at the same spot, but they added an addition to the left, to the right, and to the front, and they added different like wood paneling on it. So that little white house that I remembered in my mind, was in the house was in the same location, but it didn't look at all the same. But what I come to find out is they actually built around it. So that original house was there. That's where they put the crystal radio, in that old section of the house where we experienced the disembodied electrical voice and all that stuff. And you saw the responses we got, and I can just, without giving it away, my sister was getting similar responses, but in a different way, not through the equipment in the front room, but through the crystal radio, which isn't plugged into anything. And we were getting things that they went back a few days later to look at what was happening in the sky, and things were going on in the sky. So I'm really excited to see how they put that all together. So yeah, really, crazy stuff happening still out there. And in talking with the neighbors, like I said, at these local small town bars, that all the locals go to, anybody you talk to in there has experienced something. So it's not only the one ranch location, it's this whole area from Franktown to Elizabeth to Kiowa to Rama, this whole kind of basin, basically.
Thank you, Katie. And if we have time later on in this presentation, I have James on this Zoom call, and he's a former military guy, and he had an experience with the MIB. So that a little teaser for you guys.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? We got one.
I pretty much watched all the episodes of the Skinwalkers, of the different ones, and I'm wondering, are they going to be focusing back underground? Because I noticed they've been kind of pulling away from the underground parts of those, and I know they've been having issues and readings underground. So I'm just wondering if they're focusing back underground again.
Right. Here's a funny thing. So living up here, I only have like Netflix and Amazon Prime. So I haven't watched all the episodes, and I haven't been caught up on my Skinwalker Ranch episodes. I do know James Keenan. I get a little bit, what they're doing there. I hear from Jeff what they've done, and I got to see where they were blowing things up and digging. I kind of know where they're taking season 2 for Rocky Mountain Ranch. Here's a cool thing that, those who think we stage things for the show, they did go down, and I think I could say this without getting in trouble. They did go down, they put bodies down in the cistern, hoping to find some stuff. They didn't. So I'm like, are they gonna make something up and say they did? But no, I don't think they're going to. I mean, I don't think they did. There's like, well, we went down, there's nothing there. So I was like, oh, that's good to know. So yeah, I think they are gonna be still focusing on underground. I know maybe that's some of the stuff they'll tie back around to, you know, the remote view. And I'm one who believes that there's possible these arrays or some sort of technology, possibly our own, that's been hidden underground. Something else that I didn't really touch on in this presentation, but some of these locations like the Skinwalker Ranch in Blind Frog and the Rocky Mountain Ranch and even the Bradshaw Ranch in Sedona, these are high elevation locations that are kind of in the circle in the middle of the country. Do we have technology underground that if a nuke comes over, all of a sudden these things are going to be awakened and shoot something down? That's a possibility. And that would explain some of the readings and the strange activities that's going on at these ranch. So I kind of fall in both camps, you know, and that hasn't changed through all these years. And of course they'd want to hide these things. They'd want to cover them up.
All right, with that, I think we're gonna get ready to go to the next presentation. So thanks again,
Okay.
Kate. Round of
Thank
applause.
you guys. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there.